Matthew, what do you do?
I'm a business coach and a strategic consultant right now at a consultancy I founded about a year and a half ago called Prime Consulting.
So give me a little bit of backstory on that end. How did you come into that? I know that you got a pretty extensive background, so I want to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, I fell into it by complete accident. I wasn't hoping to go into coaching or consulting. It always seemed like something that was cool, but never meant to go into that. So I actually worked as a pastor on and off for 14 years, started a marketing company because of a traumatic car accident that I went into, that I was a part of in 2012. And so I started the marketing agency as a business to make money because I was depressed, stuck, couldn't work, couldn't keep a 9 to 5. So started the marketing company, built that up, used a lot of the experience and the capital to start a real estate company with one of my best friends where we buy and renovate like multifamilies, anything 2+. And then had a successful exit from the marketing company about a year and a half ago. And one of my old clients just called me up and I was dodging their calls for, if I'm honest, months on end. And just because I was done with marketing, right? I was like, hey, I want a break. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I was like, I need a break. And someone, my fiance currently, she got on my case about it and said, hey, you need to call him back. And so I did. And it turns out that they wanted to hire me to consult for them and to coach for them. And I was both thrilled and shocked out of my mind. A little bit of imposter syndrome hit. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And started getting into it, started getting into the weeds, started telling people about it. And then next thing you know, I had a full-fledged business. And yeah, that's been at almost a year and a half now and absolutely loving it.
Do you think that's more so because it's in your blood though, just business alone?
Oh man, it's a good question. I think honestly, it doesn't matter what I do. Didn't matter the marketing, didn't matter the pastoring, didn't matter the real estate or even the coaching. Whatever the skin is, I just love seeing people reach their potential and the ability to work with them. It's so fulfilling, and to see people step into what's on their lives and what they feel like they're meant to do and see them impact the world. And so this is the latest iteration. It feels really great, but honestly, irregardless of the skin, I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Love it. So you coach and consult. What's the difference?
Oh man. And I'm sure this people that listen to the podcast are probably going to fight me, but on the coaching side, I feel like I work primarily with stakeholders, business owners, and it's a lot of the high level stuff that I love because I'm a dreamer. Let's talk strategy, problem solve, let's zoom out, let's do all those things. And all of those are amazing. But the more I talk to people in business, and I know this from having owned businesses, it's all that is great. But if you don't have a team to execute or your implementation sucks, listen, we can dream till the cows come home, but none of it's actually getting fleshed out. And so on the consulting side, what I do is I actually work with the teams, the operators and the managers in the business to implement things and to bring about the execution. So trying to marry, how do we bring strategy and implementation together? So that's why I say I'm a business coach, in that I coach owners and entrepreneurs, but I'm a consultant in that I help businesses implement the very things that I'm coaching on.
So you're doing both sides of it.
And honestly, I don't know what your experience has been, but in talking to a lot of my clients, it feels like that's something that oftentimes a lot of people in my line of work right now aren't necessarily meeting that need, right? And not because they can't, they're just right now, maybe it's capacity or maybe how they're addressing things, but it feels like it's a very real need. And so I've made a niche out of it and I'm loving it.
Everybody nowadays is a coach or consultant, and with no background in coaching or consulting or business, I want to say. So
Right.
I see that somebody has business experience and is actually doing it.
Oh man, let me tell you, I had so many fears and apprehensions because listen, I'm an extrovert. I'm an out there personality. I love to be in the middle of things, but I'm not a big social media guy. I'm also not a big, everybody's trying to hustle, trying to be the influencer, the coach. And so for me, even using that label, I was pretty resistant to it, but I'm a sports guy at heart. And so the idea of coaching people and this optimization of, hey, you know what, maybe you're at 40% of your capacity. Forget 100. Let's get you to 50. Let's get you to 60. This idea of working side by side with people, like the work I do is incredibly relational. I tell people all the time, if you're looking for a guy who's going to roll out a 7-step framework on how you're going to get to $10 million, I'm not your guy. I am your guy that's going to be with you in the trenches. And in that our relationship, we're going to go through the good, the bad, the strategy, the implementation, because That's my lane. My lane is I want to see people reach the goal and I want to be there at the start and at the finish.
So is there like a framework that you use to diagnose like new businesses that come through with you?
Yeah. I've got a set of questions that help me diagnose. And then I always walk people through what I call the 4 Ps. And those 4 Ps are pretty simple, right? I actually want to find out what their purpose is. So many business owners have strayed from what their purpose is. I want to learn about the profitability, right? I actually want to learn about where the business sits in terms of metrics. I was recently talking to a friend about so many people love to just shoot a revenue number, and revenue's great, but let's talk profit, right? And I've come to learn in the coaching world that everybody talks revenue who doesn't actually measure anything. If you don't have the measurements, you're talking revenue. When at the moment that you start keeping good data, people are like, no, I want to know the profit, man. That number scares me. And yeah, I guide people through these 4 Ps. And one of them is predictability. I want to help people build systems that are predictable so that it doesn't rely on them. And that goes back to your question. It's like one of the things I love to diagnose a business. And again, all this comes from personal experience. I ask 2 questions. I always ask, what does success look like for you? Not what's your goal, not what's the target. Like your goal could be $10 million. That's fantastic. But I want to know, what does success look like for you? Because success, we need to flesh out what it looks like, it feels like, what it sounds like. It's not an airy fairy thing. Like that's an actual ideal. Because once we paint out that vision, everybody else in the organization can now rally under that thing. If you just set a goal of $5 million, then we get to $5 million. What's next? You're just going to chase the next high, chase the next success. And the second question that I ask that I think really gets the nitty gritty of why are we actually here is, I tell people, I said, God forbid something were to happen to you and you had to leave, you can do anything for the business for the next 30 days, 1 month. What would happen to your business? And every single person I talk to, without fail, it's like an awkward smile. And then I can see the nervousness and then like fear just fills them up. And more often than not, people say, yeah, my business would be decimated if I wasn't around for 30 days. And I tell people, I'm like, it's going to sound cliche, but you don't have a business, you have a job. Because when you don't show up to your job, you don't get paid. So let's build you a business. And that question doesn't matter what your ancillary problems are or what you even came to me for. More often than not, that question actually exposes enough that we're like, okay, man, let's work together.
You just point on asking those first 2 questions. It could be success, could be one thing to one person, one thing to another. It could be revenue, just how a number that they want, just because that's what they deem success to them. Or it could be time freedom or freedom to do whatever they want with their family. And that's 2 separate routes you need to take.
Totally. And I just love that thought that success is more than a number. It's actually holistic, right? And so I was talking to a client and they, when they first started working, they're like, oh, my goal is this. They were obsessed with their goal. I want to say it was $4 or $5 million goal. And I said, great. To your cleaning staff, what does a $5 million goal mean? Because they're on your team, right? How do you rally that member of your team around your goal? And they just sat there and they're like, oh, great question. Now let's flip that paradigm. What does success look like? Okay. So success looks like, man, we want to be financially free. We want to be profitable, but success also looks like, man, we want to build a workplace where people are encouraged. People are happy to come to work and the place is clean. Now take that to every single member of your staff, whatever that definition of success looks like, and see them rally under it. Because now that member of the cleaning staff, they say, man, I may not feel like I'm contributing to a $5 million goal, but I can definitely contribute to keeping this place clean and making it a fun place to work. And now everybody in the organization can rally around that.
I feel like a lot of people overlook those small. Like, they have so much more going on that they need to address. That's a good point.
Totally. And you know what? I think we're all guilty of it, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm on my high horse. I've got it all figured out. No, I do this in my own life all the time. And I've done it in business over and over again. But I think it's this idea, and this is why I love coaching. It's this idea that we're all going to go off the path and we're all going to rely on what we think is best, even though it's probably not. And that's where having that outside voice to be like, hey, you can go down that road. That's up to you. But just know that A, B, and C may happen if you do. Are you okay with it? And as we work and build that relationship, it really opens people up to, because my job, I tell people all the time, like, if you think you're hiring me to be an expert, man, I'm the wrong guy, right? You're in your field. You know exactly what's up. What you're bringing me in is I'm here to empower you and bring all the information together so that you make the best decision because you're the one in this field. And so I just think within that framework, let's be real. I struggle. I'm sure you struggled. We all struggle. It's about, hey, can we work together and try and find the commonality to keep building?
What are the more common issues with, I guess, new businesses coming on or people? What are they struggling with whenever they come see you?
Yeah, honestly, the chorus of complaints is pretty similar, right? Until I ask that diagnosis question, always hear, Matt, I feel stuck. Man, I feel like I'm suffering from a form of paralysis. I don't know what my next move is. Or a really common one for a lot of small businesses is, hey, I've actually got a bunch of ideas and I even know what I want to do, but I'm so busy working in the business that I can't work on the business, right? I am drowning in the day to day. And I think a third piece that fits out of the second one is people want to bring people on, but they are terrified to waste capital and waste time. So how do I grow a business when, if we're honest, I'm probably really fearful. That's the emotion I'm feeling, to let go of control of my baby or the thing that I've built. And so at the end of the day, I think those three things feel really common across almost all of my clients and most entrepreneurs that I talk to.
I want to touch base on that second one that you mentioned, because I can relate to that in business endeavors that I've done in the past. I have so much going on. I have these great ideas, but I'm too busy in the day to day to get anything going. And where do I even start?
Man, it's such a good question, right? And so as cliche as it's going to sound, I tell people we need to work through a framework. And it's this idea that every position in your organization, right? So you've got an org chart. I don't care if you're 2 people or you're 10 people. It's not about the people, it's about the responsibility. You've got an org chart. Every position has a job description. Every job description has a workflow of what success looks like. And from there, we can build out processes, whatever. But I love asking owners like yourself, hey, what's your job description? Oh, well, I'm the owner. Sure, that's great. You started the thing. What's your job description? And so now it's, what's the expectations of your role? What are you actually responsible for? And all those things, because once we do that for an owner, all those things that you're doing, we're like, this is exactly, now we start to offload them one by one. This is exactly when now you're in a friction where you're like, I'm the owner. I've got my hand. We make job descriptions for, ironically, but it's, hey, let's actually map out what is your job, and not just what is your job, what do you actually want to do? I know for me in the past, I had to come to this place where I was like, I should be giving vision. I should be training and developing people. And I should be really just trying to bring growth to the organization. Outside of that, I need to start letting go of things. And it wasn't until I put down on paper what those general vague concepts were. Until I did that, I honestly was still holding on to so many minute tasks. Like I was still managing email accounts on our G Suite. Like, why am I doing that? But I was doing that because I didn't have a finite description of what I, as the business owner or chief stakeholder, should have been doing. And so if I didn't have a plan, I was going to fail.
Realizing what each individual is doing, writing out all the responsibilities, or I guess you would need to figure out one, what the business does itself, writing out everything that the business is going to, and then who's responsible for each one of those tasks. And then that's building out that org chart. That's how you.
Exactly. I love starting with that org chart because it's amazing. And if you can get 2 or 3 people on the conversation, I love to bridge both the owners and the operators, because the owners have a perspective, right? The owners would be like, oh man, where does marketing fit? We need that because that brings in sales and finance and admin. And your general manager is sitting there being like, why do I care about admin? I've got to worry about hiring, got to worry about HR, got to worry about staff. And so when you merge both of those worlds, you get a real clear picture of what the org chart should look like, sorry. And that org chart, again, it's not about people, because you're going to look at it and most businesses are going to say, okay, we have way more responsibility than we have available human resources. It's about mapping out the responsibilities in the organization so you can start to draw clear paths of, okay, can one person shoulder 2 or 3 of these? Can I outsource this? It's amazing how many businesses I'll work with, they'll do this and they'll say, finances, it feels really reasonable to just hire a bookkeeper. Like, why are we keeping someone on staff, right? Marketing, hey, we could hire someone full time, or we could at least outsource some of this to free up bandwidth. And now you start to see, okay, what can I automate? What can I delegate? What can I eliminate? And that 3-step framework is part of what we do.
And that's going to lead you on to the next step, is letting go and realizing you can let go and start hiring some talent in those positions. What are and I know this question, but I want to go through it to the next step I have. What are those common fears of letting go that you commonly hear?
Man, listen, Dylan, I'm sure you're much better than I was at this. So you're probably a pro, but for me, I know personally, I had huge fear around 2 things. The first was quality, right? What if they don't do it the way that I do it? The second was I was worried that there was things that I knew that I couldn't give to somebody else. I'm like, oh, they're never going to know why I do it this way. Well, one of the things that I still laugh at is, as I onboarded someone on the team, I was walking them through everything and they looked at my screen. They're like, why do you have 22 tabs open? You can just do this with 3 tabs. And I was like, bro, I built this business. What are you doing here? And so I think it's that first one though. At the end of the day, it's that fear of if they're not going to do it the way that I would do it. And when I tell people, and it's a huge paradigm shift, is I like to view everything on 100%, right? 100% is maximum output, 0 obviously is nothing. And someone will come in, they'll be like, oh, this person only did 50% of the job. Oh, that's so annoying. And I'm like, there's a few ways we can look at this, right? Someone just did 50% of the job and it took only 20% of your effort. You may have gotten 100% of the result before, but it took 100% of your effort. So you're winning, right? So you just offshored 80% of your time. The second way to look at it is, if someone got 50% of it right, 50% of it wrong, instead of harping on the 50% wrong, we now have a baseline that we can optimize. They got 50%, only up from here. And so I've learned to train myself. And it's one of the things I work with my clients on is, hey, as you give things away and delegate, obviously we have systems in place and we're going to create training materials. I just want you to be okay with 70%. That's the baseline. 70%. Are you okay to hand something off? And are you confident that someone can get 70% of the way there? Because then we've got someone to work with. Because the bigger asset isn't perfection. And the goal isn't someone doing it the way you did it. The goal is to free up your time. So how do we do that?
70% is so much better than you trying to do, honestly, trying to give 100% to 15 different organizations that need you. You're really only getting 10% when somebody else is 7X and over here at 70%. So that's a big deal.
Totally. And it goes back to our previous thing, right? Where it's, if you're the owner, the entrepreneur, or a high level performer, going back to your job description, you're like, man, I need to hand off everything that isn't my absolute priority or things that are only required of me. And so if 70% is a win, I'm going to focus on that because we can still get better from there.
Absolutely. So you've clearly grown successful businesses. What are some of the tips that you can give small business owners?
Yeah, I think a great starting point for people, I love to tell people that paradigm around success. I think that's such an important question to ask. What does success actually look like? And when you figure out whatever that is, and you have your canon of what success looks like, the next thing I'd encourage people to do, start to measure what success looks like. And I'm not saying go get some fancy dashboard, and I'm not saying go track every single thing in your business, but once you determine what success is, you're going to have a pretty decent feeling of, okay, now how can we track this success? And what are the things that feed into this success? There's this business adage that goes, you can't manage what you're not measuring, right? And I would take it a step further because so many people want to use the words grow and scale. And I know I do in my marketing. I'm guilty of it too. You can't multiply what you're not managing. So if I can't multiply what I'm not managing and I'm not managing what I'm not measuring, we need to start measuring. And so the only way that we actually can start measuring things isn't in a marketing dashboard. It's not just throwing a bunch of numbers at the wall and only focusing on revenue, for example. It's working backwards and saying, what does success look like? Okay. And what are a few numbers that indicate that we're on the right path to success? Let's obsess and be religious about tracking them.
Yeah. So that's funny you say that. I stumbled upon my first business. I had no business experience. I did go to college, some college credits for business management, but not enough to do any basics. And I thought I can just throw a bunch of money at marketing, make a bunch of money. But then it wasn't like that. I didn't know about measuring and metrics and KPIs and all that stuff. And I'm just thinking my first year of business, it kicked me in the teeth. But luckily we had a high product that we were selling, or a high margin product that we were selling. So we did very well with that. But there's so much more to it.
Totally. And this is where, looking back again, I had to learn a lot of these things out of survival because I was at a place 2 years post accident with my disability where I was landing marketing clients. And as soon as I was landing them, I was losing because the unpredictability of my health, sometimes I could get knocked out for weeks at a time. So I had to learn how to put in systems. I had to learn how to train and delegate. And I had to learn as part of that process, okay, what does success actually look like with the way I'm going? Maybe a $10 million target's probably not happening anytime soon. And so success, great. Now that I've figured out what success looks like, how do I measure that? How do I get my team to measure that? If in the example I gave to my client, if success looks like people want to work here and the culture is happy, then you can give your client, you can give your employees metrics, and you can lay out metrics that are going to make sense for the team to say, hey, we're going to roll out a quarterly survey and see what employee satisfaction is, even though there's only 20 of us, right? And let's get a feel for how people feel. And because of that, they started to implement things like, we need more staff hangouts. We should actually do a Christmas party, small things that they would have never guessed or never thought of because they just thought, oh, we're a small business. That getting those metrics and getting that data help them make decisions. And one last thing I'll say to that, I want to help entrepreneurs and high performers move away from making feeling-based decisions to start making data-driven decisions, because the data is going to help us optimize that 50% that we were talking about. If you do a job 50%, if I know you're doing 50%, the knowledge or the power comes in that knowledge. Now we can go to 60. Now we can go to 70. Now we can go to 80. We can keep working because we have a knowledge. Let's live in the reality of where we're actually at and what that number is.
Business is nothing but numbers. And once you realize that and allow the numbers to do their thing and take the emotions out, that's whenever you have a true business.
So good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what was your marketing company? What industry were you in?
Yeah. So I ran a marketing consulting agency and I had clients across the board. So again, it was interesting and I keep finding myself in this role, but I did a dual role where I functioned as a marketing consultant. So I would come in and I would say, hey, there are better ways to do this. Here's the inefficiencies. And so I would build trust with people. And then once I built trust with them, I would say, hey, you can go to any marketing company, but also I also run an agency. So I can actually do the work in-house. So not only was I on the strategy side, I slowly built a team of in-house people that would then do the implementation. Not everyone went with us, a bunch did. And so it just felt like a great feeder system. And so it's ironic that now I'm doing a similar thing on the coaching side. But yeah, I worked with everything from private companies, worked with a few companies listed on the stock exchange. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It ran its course. My marketing brain was marketed out.
Yeah. So there's a lot of agencies nowadays. It's like the hot topic. It was a few years ago, I want to say. What made yours different to where you were able to sell yours versus everybody else in the agency?
Yeah. I think it was the longevity of the clients, the data. I had really good data. So again, my strategy, and I think it comes back to your definition of success and what success looks like for you. I didn't set out to build $100 million marketing agency. That wasn't my goal, right? My goal was I want to put food on the table and I want to get something that's going to create some margin for me to be able to invest and build out from there. And so because of that, I leaned in really hard on what I knew best, which was relationships. And so rather than cold calling and cold emailing, I just went to town and building relationships. Again, is that super scalable to a massive amount? Probably not, but it worked really well in my context. And so the reason that I was able to have a successful exit is that when people looked at the books, they saw, man, you've got clients that have longevity. Not only do you have longevity, but you've got great data to support it. There's still margins here. And so it was very attractive from that sense. It wasn't a burn and churn. I didn't just acquire these clients out of nowhere. There was a track record of acquisition and a track record of having provided for these clients.
Not a lot of people do that. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. That's a big accomplishment.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So give me a breakdown, more like a case study of a successful client of yours recently. Give me from like the start when you took them on, what y'all did, turn around, and then where it is now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm currently working with a yoga and fitness brand. They're absolutely fantastic. Started working about a year and a half ago. Love the client. I work on with both the stakeholders and the operating team. And over the last year, they've seen 30% year over year growth, which is incredibly exciting. We actually have a strategy session coming up in a month, but they're thinking about launching 2 additional lines of business, which gets me really excited for them. But when I look back, the ability to work with, because they were one of my first clients in this endeavor, the ability to work with the owners and the operators really helped bridge the gap on how quickly we were able to move and implement things. Because on one side, we were coming up with strategy and building into people. And on the other side, we were taking that execution and implementing it and building out the systems to support it. It would be so often someone would say, hey, we have this idea. And we got in a rhythm in the last few months where the operations would come and say, hey, if we want to deploy that idea, we need a workflow, we need a structure, we need a process. And so it's starting to you're starting to feel the compounding gains of the last year, especially as they launch. But it's interesting because it's everything that I laid out earlier in the interview, right? I had someone come to me who said, I love this line of work, but I want to go into a different phase of my life, potentially with marriage and kids. I don't want to allot the same amount of time, even though I love this. How do we build the business in a way that affords me that freedom and doesn't depend on me? And also from an operator's perspective, how do I work on the business when I am drowning in it? Margins, profit, that whole bit. And so tackling those two things and walking it through has been incredible. And I'll just be dead honest with you. As amazing as the numbers are and as amazing as launching 2 lines of business, my favorite part, and it's why I love working in a really relational based industry, is seeing the growth, seeing so much fulfillment come from people saying, and I see the nuance of, man, we were just laughing a few weeks ago about how a year ago they would have laughed at the idea of delegation, right? That the general manager is just an operations whiz, but because she's doing it all herself, 50, 60-hour weeks. And we'd laugh because I could see she'd just shake when I was like, we need to offload that off the plate. And to see that growth has just been amazing. And so I'm a huge fan of theirs. And I think something that they have in common with a lot of my clients is that they're all in business coaching, but they're all very coachable. And I think that's just an attitude and a skill that I think everyone that wants to hire a coach needs to have in order to be successful.
Matthew, would you say you're a visionary or an integrator?
I'd say I'm a visionary. Yeah. The integration, I had to force myself out of survival to learn, but at heart, I'm a visionary. And so I'm hoping that the more I grow and the more I surround myself with great people, that I can find some great integrators, but I'm a visionary at heart.
Yeah, same. Leads me to my next question. That's why I asked this too. If you had to start or buy another business, rather, knowing what you know, coaching who you've coached, what business would that be and why?
Listen, this is going to feel like a cop out of an answer, but if it's not real estate, and buying assets, I would actually just get right back into business coaching. Um, I love it. I think the tangible returns are obvious, but I think the intangible returns are also incredible. The fact that I get to rub shoulders on a regular basis with people that are of like mind, visionaries, high performers, people that want to do something with their lives and want to impact the world around them. Yeah, I'd hop right back in because I see so much merit in that world. And I think the people and the caliber of people I get to rub shoulders with is just amazing.
Good to hear. I'm like in that space right now, had a few companies, scaled those companies, 7-figure companies, done with a few of them, still have a few, hired out some people on one of them that kind of runs itself now. So I had to have zero, I can't say zero. I have 1 hour a week in one of those companies. And it's small. I say company, it's a small business. And now I'm just bored and ready to do something else. I'm either going to buy a business, I'm either going to start a business. And coaching has kind of, I thought, I love coaching. I love helping people. It's so much fun, but I don't know if that's what the route I want to take right now. And that's why some of these questions are coming geared towards that while I'm asking you these things too. So it's been a nice conversation while I'm asking that. The how because I guess you can relate to this a little. You were doing one thing and then somebody's coming for you for questions. I've been having a lot of people come questions, asking things, and I'm noticing, hey, this is something that's starting to take a lot of time up. I can't just give a short answer here. I might need to start something here. How'd you start that with that first client?
Oh man. And this is where I say that I'm really blessed in how I fell into the opportunity. But I think because I had built that track record with the marketing company, that whether or not people were my clients, they knew of me. And so when that old client called me and said, hey, they straight up told me, and it was a blow to my ego. They said, hey, at the end of the day, we actually didn't really care for your marketing. We just really loved working with you and the questions you asked us. We want you to do that across the rest of our business. And so it was a bit of maybe a compost salt, we'll call it that. But yeah, and so for me, that going into that and applying my logic and my experiences to all of their departments felt so easy. So after that first client, I just started telling people, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what someone's bringing me on for. And again, to my surprise, it's just been really easy to integrate people. So I haven't had that problem that maybe you're having. And to be honest, I guess I also approach things a little differently, where right now, even though my time is limited, I'm still of the belief, I did this on the marketing side too, where I'm just going to provide a tremendous amount of value. I know my time is money and my time is valuable, but I just want to keep the margins to provide a ton of value for people. And I'm just going to trust that life's journey has taken me pretty well so far, and it's going to keep going that way.
Love to hear it. So sum up your last however many years in your entrepreneur journey. What have you learned? If you had to sum it all up.
I would say, honestly, nothing is impossible. And maybe that sounds cliche, but for me to having gone through the trauma and the pain that I did, I was 3 inches from life being over. And to look back, I tell people, I didn't choose that path, but I actually don't know now that I've, removed from it. I don't know that I would have done it any different, because I've found so much purpose in that pain, and to see how that has helped me with my clients, right? So many of the stories I'm telling you today and the business experience I have came out of that, right? I don't know that I would have ever had, that I would have ever made the leap from my 9 to 5. I had a great 9 to 5. Being in my early 20s, I was flying around North America doing presentations. Like, I had a good job for a guy who went to Bible college. And so I don't know that I would have ever made the leap, even though I love business and entrepreneurship. And so what I went through and what I'm going through has really shown me that nothing's impossible. You may feel stuck. You may feel like you may be on your 4th business and the first 3 failed. At the end of the day, if you surround yourself with great people, and if you adopt a great attitude and you learn some skills, man, you can figure it out. It may not be the success that everybody else has, but if you figure it out, it's pretty incredible what people can do.
your journey, it just something came to mind is God has a plan. He just has a plan, whether we like it or not, or if it's our way or not, it's God's plan and it's going to unfold.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where, again, I say I'm just so blessed that sometimes I say that I lucked into this journey, but looking back, it all feels really intentional. It feels like everything has been leading to this moment. And for me, now I just have this opportunity to really not just ride the wave, but try and impact people the best I can so that none of that pain that I went through or others went through ever feels wasted, if that makes sense.
So Matthew, where could people go to find out more about you, get connected with you?
Yeah. So I love connecting with people. You can go to my website, consultingbyprime.com, or you can look up on socials. Would love to connect with you there, either on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Matthew Sanjari, Sanjari, Matthew Sanjari.
Cool. And we'll link that stuff in the show notes as well. So people don't have to type that stuff out. So make it a little easy. Matthew, man, I appreciate you coming on today.
No, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be on and just a great conversation. It's always easy to talk to. Love it. Love it.